This is Adario Strange, the editor of nextreality.net. Today we have Paul Duffy, the president of NexTech AR, and welcome. How are you?
Well, thank you. I'm great, man. I'm great. I'm up here in Toronto. Weather is, a little warmer than normal, but we got a little bit of sunshine. But pretty much all our snow is gone.
Are you from Toronto? Or where are you from?
Yeah, so I hail from the center of the universe, Niagara Falls, Ontario, and then I've spent many years in the United States in a number of different cities. But my family and I are based here in Toronto, right downtown Toronto, actually. And I've probably been, for the most part, a Torontonian now for the better part of about 35 years.
Okay. So we can finally stop hearing the NBA fans over there whining about not having. Oh, my
gosh. Dude, it's been crazy here. Crazy.
So the main... I guess AR virtual people that I kind of know from that area are the North Focals guys. Do you have any connection with those guys, or they're just in passing?
I know of them. They're now, I believe, with Google, and they were, there's Toronto itself, and there's a bit of a triangle up here with Waterloo, Kitchener, and Toronto. There's just a lot of great tech infrastructure, tech businesses, formation capital, et cetera. And it's just been a really rich place for that type of, sort of gathering, if you would, of entrepreneurs. The sad part, though, is that Canada as a country, while wonderful, is relatively small on the global scope, or on the global scale. So you'll see virtually anybody, NexTech, North, all sorts of named businesses in this space, looking further afield, shall I say, for markets, right? And that tends to be the case. And North, I believe, is probably one of those. Took a swing up here in Toronto, in Canada, found a bit of a market in the U.S., and then were picked up by Google, which congratulations to them for that.
Absolutely. I'm actually curious. This isn't the point of this chat, but I'm just really curious to see if they use those guys to kind of like rehab the image of Google Glass. All right, so enough of those guys. So let's get into you. So let's talk about before we get into NexTech, your current company where you're president, I wanted to get into the background. In your backgrounder, it says that you were at ARHT, where they produced holograms for the notorious B.I.G., Stephen Hawking, Deepak Chopra. So... So just B.I.G., not Tupac? Is that like a completely different company? My memory is not.
Well, yeah, it totally is. Yeah. So I can tell you a little bit about. So ARHT is actually, it's an acronym. It's augmented reality holographic technology. The company Art Media, I was one of the co-founders of, and this is going back probably 7 years ago now. And we built the business primarily around a bunch of technology I'd created, which is today called holographic telepresence. I invented and then patented, a whole method for the capture of, an individual human or multiple humans, and then the ability to beam them essentially through the public internet. That was the real, sort of breakthrough, was creating these codecs that would allow you to stream that type of technology onto a series of, literally room scale display devices, stages. And, if you can believe it, our first client was Tony Robbins. And, we had beamed him from Florida to Melbourne, Australia. And, he'd perform. He'd do a 3-4 day show, right? Training course. It's used pretty much all over the world.
Yeah, I think this whole notion of bringing pop stars, whether it's rap or scientists or, just, spiritual thinkers like Deepak Chopra, into the holographic space to live forever, to essentially make them immortal, is only going to pick up steam. And what I do want to talk to you about later, Paul, is the intersection between this kind of stuff and the emerging NFT space, where these virtual experiences, virtual objects are being given new currency as they're being made new, unique.
Yeah. So, with Art Media, the idea was that we would create these, them around, literally the world. Works really, really well, obviously, if, you're quote unquote a VIP performer, celebrity, politician, etc. And you need to be in one or more places at the same time. Or concurrently, you just can't surrender a day to 3 days of travel, right? If you're in North America, you got to beam into Shanghai. That sounds kind of fun to travel there, but after you've done it 50 times, it's a 2 to 3 day swing, right, to get there and back. So this was a great tech for that. The biggie opportunity popped about, when the estate came to us and said, hey, what could we do here? And, so that's one of those sort of activations where, you probably want to speak to, the biggie estate about how and what they do there. Because, frankly, that's sort of very specific to them, and they use it. They do it in some interesting activations. But those are just things we all agreed we would keep quiet on. But it's a very cool technology, without a doubt.
Okay. And so just let's talk about the technology.
Yeah. So, with the hologram technology, right, as you can imagine, and we see it, every day in our business, this idea of creating digital humans, ideally you want to create, living humans, or as you talked a little bit earlier, you're creating a digital double from somebody who's deceased, right? The idea here is that, those technologies, the ability to create that sort of photorealistic, volumetric person is getting just more and more sophisticated. Pipelines, workflows, everything along those sort of vectors are really coming together to make it a full reality. And so that's really exciting because, obviously the ability to beam those folks in either live or or pre-recorded, monstrous opportunities there from, all forms, from commercialization to learning to education, just pure entertainment for fun, right? So yeah, it's a wonderful space, no doubt.
But let's go back to people like Tony Robbins and I guess Deepak Chopra. So is this also like, how are you actually deploying these experiences? Like when it actually, everything's recorded, whether it's recorded or it's a live action situation, like what are the, the situations? Like, is it always kind of beamed against some sort of, I don't know, background? Or do you sometimes use head-worn devices? Like, give me the different cases, like how this is being distributed.
Yes, it's all good. Yeah, so today, a few years ago, in the context of art, for instance, you would beam onto a stage, and that literally is a live event, right? But if you fast forward to today, right, like where we are in 2021. With NexTech, what we have been doing is we've been beaming folks in as holograms, and we have some great apps like our ARitize app, our Airshow app. We even do an awful lot of web AR, where you can literally create these holograms now and then trigger them, right from your phone, from your tablet, or obviously your computer, but use your mobile device as the tool, the display mechanism, if you would, for the hologram. And so, that's worked out wonderfully because when you build and create those types of holograms, oftentimes they're part of an existing program. In other words, some other area. If it's triggering off of a virtual event, a live or hybrid event, it could be, at a university where, people are doing virtual labs, so they need to see the lab technician, and then they need to play with the microscope, or they need to dissect a rat. I mean, all of these are possible. In fact, we do all of these through our platforms at NexTech. And so we've got, I could talk all day long about different exploits like that. So it's just, it's amazing how quickly that is being adapted, possibly accelerated, obviously, because of COVID, but it really is becoming more and more ubiquitous. And we see that globally.
Right. So that's talking about the mobile and the desktop, but like, can you take me through the technical aspects of, like, let's say either a live performance and for instance, like just on the other side, like, are you guys using, headsets, like, be it, I don't know, the HoloLens or the Magic Leap or Vuzix? Like, are you using any of the headsets, or is it strictly kind of like traditional hardware and then live performance? And then live performance, like, how exactly is that happening on a technical level?
Yeah, so from a live performance point of view, at NexTech, we generally don't do anything beyond the mobile AR. When with art media, for instance, you would set up a stage, right? You would rig it with a mesh with projection, and you would beam the hologram onto the mesh. and then you would light it accordingly. And that works quite well, depending on the location. And, frankly, today you can't really do it because you can't gather in a live event. But, ultimately, when you stage it, it looks great. And, you're beaming in over the internet. There's zero latency. So, the ability to go back and forth, two-way conversation is all there. And so that works great. Today, though, with AR and the handset, there's a number of ways you can do that, right? But, we've just got a basket of tech that handles that. So right from the capture to the ingestion of the content, to the creation of the codec, the passing of the content back to the mobile or the receiving device, and then presenting and displaying it in your location. So there's, it's an interesting place, and I'm happy to go into the detail on that if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how.
I mean, not so, like super deep, but just like a kind of like a quick overview.
Yeah, for sure. So, and everybody can try this. They can download our app. It's free. It's called Air Show, AIR Show, just so they can follow along. But it's on, Google's app or Google's Play Store and obviously the Apple Store. But the net of it is the following. You literally set your phone up as the capture device. And we have an AI in there that, whether you use a green screen or whether you've just got a standard background, the AI will carve you out as a human hologram. And then it will allow you to go in, make some moves, and it'll do some shading and create effectively what appears to be a volumetric experience of yourself. And then we can take that particular capture and put it into a variety of different sets. We can set it up with different CG. We've got amazing technology coming out that's got multi-plane, so you can have the hologram at the forefront, some action like image mags or background stuff on the rear. And then with your stage, again, because it's a CG environment, you can anchor any type of stage that you want. So these types of experiences are super compelling. All you've got to do to view them, and again, you can see this in the app, is you literally just set up the time on when you want to go live. And even though it's pre-recorded, you could have a simulive, you could do a live broadcast if you want, or you could do it on demand. Just type in the code and it'll automatically activate. So with the display device, so now I'm a viewer, all I do is literally load the app, click the date, and I can actually just point the phone at the floor. Our AI will map the floor, literally tell you the best place to load it, and then it'll lock it into play, and you just enjoy the content.
So yeah, I actually tried out a few of your apps, and one, I think it was one of your team members, she was like demoing the app. And one thing I noticed was that even though it appeared that she was volumetrically captured, it didn't seem like I was able to actually walk around her, Right. So can you just explain, like, are you guys working on some sort of, I don't know, development for that, or just because that was a little bit disappointing, I'll be honest.
No, for sure. And so no question, we will continually improve that process. You want to have, well, let me answer it. Let me respond this way. What you would have seen and what you'll see if you use our app is that we will do, frankly, a two-dimensional capture off of the phone, right? And I'm not talking LiDAR or anything like that. I just mean a straight-on, HD capture, right? Mm-hmm. And then what we'll do is we'll shade the edges to give you a little bit of volume. But we'll always have eyes on camera. So regardless of where you walk around, the hologram will turn to meet you, that kind of idea. And the reason we do that is it's really more about, in our case anyways, getting to the scale where people could use that form of AR to communicate. And so when we sit with our clients and we go through this with them, they're absolutely right. Some of them want the full body volumetric capture of the human. But there is a degree of cost and time required to do that oftentimes doesn't return the reward that they're looking for. So I'll give you a very, very typical example for us. It could be an executive who is doing a keynote speech for one of our clients on our digital experience platform. They will actually say, you know what, can you record me? I want to do the introduction. I want to do the invite. And I've got 5,000 employees that are going to come to this. I would like to be a hologram and I want to be standing in their room or in their house, but I don't need to be volumetric. They just need to see me, hear my message, get enough of the verbal and nonverbal communication that gets wrapped around that hologram experience, and then let me deliver my message. So from that point of view, there's not an awful lot of need for that viewer to walk around that individual as a fully volumetric or anchored individual.
Okay. And
Now,
I'm
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
no. Other cases where you do want to have volumetric, we can do as well. It just takes more time and a lot more cost. And so oftentimes when we present that, to our clients, they're, inevitably they weigh the pro and the con. So when they do that, we usually find, believe it or not, 8 or 9 out of 10 of them will go with the 2D hologram over the volumetric.
Gotcha. Yeah. So
Change greatly when sorry.
yeah. So that's kind of like that. That does speak to something that I've actually seen in VR, where people underestimate the value of good enough. Meaning, when we're talking about VR avatars, let's say you go to some place like AltSpace, where Microsoft's AltSpace VR, where they have these very simplistic avatars. And, on the other side, you have Facebook kind of demonstrating. They haven't really rolled them out, but they're demonstrating these like highly advanced avatars that almost look exactly like you and have all these subtle facial expressions, which is great when we get there and when that's easy. But until that's easy, the good enough avatars in AltSpace are great. So that helps me understand kind of where you're coming from with the two different solutions. So, but in the realm of kind of like a full volumetric display, paint for me the world you see moving forward in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years, where it's a bit easier, due to the hardware constraints and, whatever the cost involved. Like paint that world. What's that world look like where volumetric capture and display is everywhere?
Yeah, so great question, and one that personally I don't think could get here soon enough. You know what I mean? We have always at NexTech and my all of us at NexTech, I will say, have all got a point of view that augmented reality, that fully realized vision that you just described, will happen through this decade. It will itself become an entirely new form of mass media, mass communication. I don't think there'll be a part of our lives as we know them today that will not be impacted, and I believe in a positive way, with that form of, for broad terms, augmented reality and spatial computing. It's my belief at the moment we're seeing early glimpses of that with the apps, soon your browser-based AR. When I say soon, I mean taking sort of mini apps and popping and embedding them into browsers so you don't have to download the app, to experience a full-on hologram. I think also the advent of 5G over the next 24 to 36 months, as that begins to roll out at scale, we're going to see some incredible advances around AR. I do think we will see interim or iterative improvements around eyewear. I think a lot of it will predicate on how we rotate from the smartphone displays into the eyewear itself, probably over the next 3 years. Much of the sensors that would be required for you to literally lock yourself in a spatial environment are more likely to be derived directly from the phone. So it'll be a combo eyewear plus phone, but the phone is used primarily as the interface device to move around. When I say move around, to move your viewing in your field of view on the eyewear. And then probably as we get into years 5 to 7, you'll start seeing a lot of that integrated a lot more, I would say, conveniently into the eyewear in such a way where, we do have this relatively low cost, lightweight wearable. It's stylish. It fits well. It's a bit more ubiquitous, a lot more, sort of pervasive, much like our smartphones are today. However, there will be a requirement for the phone or for some, sort of local device to do a lot of the powering of the content that's going to be viewed through that. So whether we like it or not, I think our phones are going to be with us through the first phase of that, over the next decade.
Yeah.
But, ultimately the idea, and the one that I'm particularly and personally very interested in, are these areas of almost like PDA meshes, or PDO, a PDO climate that's localized to a specific geography. It's the same concept with a mesh. you're able to move into a room, drop a mesh. The mesh itself is a data cloud, and the data cloud has already, for the most part, got the pre-rendered assets of the experience anchored within the room. You're just activating them as you look at them through your phone or through your eyewear.
The
And,
metaverse.
seriously. And I think, and I deal with a lot of this every day, with many of our clients. And everybody is playing around this particular area because they know it's coming, right? You can see it. It's very tangible. And, what the breakthrough is obviously 5G. I mean, that's the quick path in. And then the ability to bounce signal, wherever you can't get the 5G signal in, there's, obviously units that you can use to bring that into the room. And, I even speak with groups now. It's funny, they talk about, they're actually producing buildings, and they're looking at how do we put AR rooms into these buildings, almost the equivalent of these holodecks, right, that you see on, shows like Star Trek.
Right.
Because everybody knows in the next decade, that's going to become a relevant form of communication. And that's kind of exciting, right? And I think that kind of stuff's really just, once we start seeing it, that's going to be one of those exponential technologies that just gallops in capability and adoption.
Okay, so you've used the word mesh a number of times. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask you what you thought about Microsoft's recent announcement, the mesh announcement.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think it's the mesh is going to be, and again, depending on how we describe mesh, the semantic of it and the nuance can, bounce in a bunch of different directions. But I think ultimately the idea that you've got a fixed set of space, within a container, within a room, we'll call it, that you can move through. And again, when you've got devices like HoloLens that have a lot more functionality, than your standard phone or, your relatively limited eyewear today, the mesh makes a lot of sense because, the mesh is informing, how to view or how to visualize the content in that fixed space. It's got great efficiencies built into it. So I think it's a great idea. I applaud them for rolling it out. And, just we work a lot with Azure. So, there's a fair bit we can benefit from that when it actually comes out into the market at scale.
And that reminds me, before I forget, so it sounds like, because I asked earlier, but I don't think you circled back on the answer. I'm assuming you guys you haven't deployed experiences for the HoloLens and Magic Leap.
No, we don't.
Okay.
I mean, we can, and I don't want to say we don't. How do I put it? Our company is growing so fast right now that it's one of those things where, we've just got to stay really focused in a couple of key areas.
What I wanted to kind of just address is, it seems like your strategy is to address the broadest market, meaning the devices we have now, the smartphones, the tablets, the laptops, which it's actually, internally at NextReality, nextreality.net, visit it. It seems like internally we've been having that conversation too, as to just keeping one eye on the higher end AR devices and headsets and wearables, but increasingly, focusing even more on what's available via your smartphone, because that's where most people will experience their first AR, experience, interaction, whether it's commerce or entertainment or, some sort of, discount at a store or directions. So it does seem pretty, it's a wise move that you guys seem to be making. But, I have to ask, because it's like whenever you speak about volumetric, that kind of like, I kind of key in on that and I start wondering, okay, what else are you up to? So just, I guess moving away from that, where are you seeing the space in general? Like before, I guess 5G is ubiquitous, and before we have this the rumored the rumored Apple eyeglass, or I guess glasses, Apple glasses that are supposed to be coming. Like before we have all that, like how do you see this kind of rolling out through the traditional devices? Like give me the path. Like when you speak to investors, like what path do you give them?
Yeah, well, of course. So today, Q1 2021, what's very evident are three, I would call them very rich areas for monetizing augmented reality, making money off of it. The first is obviously e-commerce, the ability to visualize a product that is on a website's page through your browser while you're scrolling through your tablet, your phone, or on your computer, but principally on your phone. The ability to see the product, click a button, and then have it render without the use of an app through your browser, through your phone, and with a little bit of intelligence, you can pinch and zoom and rotate. You can add to cart. You can play with it. And we have been doing this now pretty much since the inception of our business. And I can tell you that, and this won't be unique to us now. You'll have others that'll validate this. But there's typically a 3x to sometimes 5x increase in the conversions of your shoppers to buyers when they're on your product page. They will literally click on your AR button. They will activate that experience. Again, it's very limited, right? It's web AR, so you can pinch it, zoom it, rotate it, take a selfie, maybe do a fake try on in front of the mirror. But all the data tells us that the conversion rate, that is the way they click through and add to cart, is literally 3x greater. Just I'll leave it at 3x. It's much higher in other instances, but that's already exceptional. And then, so that's kind of area number one. Area number two is all that type of experience, but having it exist off of that particular product page. And most of that finds itself in the context of an ad. There's a significant amount of money, media spend, put into driving shoppers to your website so that they can play with your product and make a purchase. So to your comment at the beginning where, AR in stores and people looking at it and using it for purchasing and stuff, we see that every day with our clients. It's very, very popular. In fact, Harish Achi, who's formerly Microsoft, president of Microsoft Online, actually runs our AR ad network at NexTech. Huge thriving business for us. And that's a good early glimpse into where AR, again, can be monetized in the context of today's world. And then the third area that we're seeing enormous activations on holograms in AR is on our digital experience platform. And so, of course, when COVID hit, the entire events industry, as we all know, pretty much shuttered. If anything, it paused. And so, a lot of people rotated into these virtual events. And then, of course, now we see a lot of hybrid events, and eventually you'll see the return back to the in-person. But AR in the context of a virtual or hybrid event is extraordinary because you can literally get people up and out of their seat and walking through a portal on their phone into a whole other world, which may in fact just be a 360-degree video. But they surrender to it because it's so real. And it's married to some form of online sort of virtual experience or virtual event. Or a product. You could beam the product into your home and play with it while you're at the event. So think about being at a product booth, right? Like you would be at a trade show, and you're good to go. And then, of course, holograms of people. So earlier I mentioned, having the executive beam in to talk to their, say the employee base. Exact same thing in the events world. You beam in a keynote, a panelist. Maybe it's a networking event with a celebrity. There's all sorts of uses there. But those, Adario, are what we're seeing today as ways to go mainstream, if I could, with AR. And all of them are running through your phone. Again, they'll run on the tablet and in I'll call it limited capacity on the computer. But principally, they're all being run through the phone. And then the final thing I'll say is out of that, we're starting to see this really interesting scenario where we're marrying up the phone and your computer screen. And people are actually designing experiences that use both devices simultaneously. So you'll actually have somebody on your web page or in your virtual event on your computer talking to you about viewing the hologram with your phone while you're in that actual collaborative session. And it's a really wonderful way to pull together an exciting experience using AR.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up the pandemic and the event space. So that's one of two final kind of topics I want to touch on. So one thing I'm kind of curious about, like when you look at what we've been through, through 2020 up until now, is immediately everyone went to, I guess, what they felt was the easiest, most kind of, I guess, dead simple solution, which was video. Virtual meetings, as they're calling them, to meet. And then to a lesser extent, VR. I attended the AltSpace VR Burning Man event, which was amazing.
For sure.
Yeah, there have been I just went to, like a couple of weeks ago, I went to like a big company briefing where they were kind of like, it was an embargoed kind of news story, and they were kind of unveiling their latest product.
Good. Yeah.
But from your vantage point, I'm just curious, like, why do you think more people aren't using this? Not even specifically NexTech AR, like your solution, but just in general, this dynamic of AR, beamed into, a particular space to kind of like allow you to feel like you're, kind of interacting with the person or the persons, because there are solutions right now, like aside from yours, that also allow you to kind of talk, have conversations with someone in AR in your own space. But I'm not really seeing that much pickup of this, dynamic. So I'm just wondering, from your vantage point, why do you feel like, particularly with the pandemic, you would think there would have been like a real, a huge increase in the usage. And I'm not seeing that as much as I would have expected.
Yeah, no, that's a fair comment. I think that, there's kind of maybe two ways to think about it. The first is that I can tell you that when you isolate down to a particular event, I'll just use one of our clients, like UNESCO or somebody like that will run a conference on literacy, right? And, basically they'll have, call it 10,000 attendees. Our data will tell us at least a third of those folks will whip the phone out and actually do some sort of AR experience that's twinned into the digital or the video conference, as you're calling it, experience, which is a fairly good size of usage for that amount of cohort, right, in that event. I think at a broader level, as a mainstream, from an adoption point of view, I don't think we're doing that bad. I do agree we could all be doing a lot better. But I think really where the bump in the road is probably more likely in the human behavior as opposed to the technology. Do you know what I mean? It's fairly seamless at this stage. I mean, you can download an app. You can just literally open your camera, trigger the experience off the, anything really, a QR code, whatever, a link, and then beam a hologram in pretty quickly. But I think that, it's just going to take a little bit more time. I think it'll happen quicker. I think without COVID, we probably would still be, fairly light on usage. But I don't think we're that bad. I don't think we're anywhere near Main Street adoption. I think we're still very much in the early adopter kind of program here, profile certainly. But the good news is that, the target device that we're talking about for the delivery of the AR experience happens to be one of the most ubiquitous devices on the planet, right? Namely your phone. And so I think the day will come. Adario, I do think 12, 24 months, it will become significantly more mainstream than it is today, which given COVID is probably 48 months faster than it normally would have been. What I mean?
So if a pandemic can't do it, what do you think will be the catalyst, that thing that will kick it into? I mean, I have my own ideas, but I'm curious what you think that moment, cultural turn. What will that thing be that will kind of kick it into action, like normalize?
That is a good question. I don't know if there will be a quote unquote watershed moment that we'll all point back to. Where we started to see the, almost overnight adoption. I mean, there might be, right? I don't know of it per se.
So, okay. So,
I think it, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say what I think will happen, and again, this is just my belief, is that, and I don't want to use the term brute force, but it will more likely just be a bit of the network effect. In other words, the network, as more people use it, more people will adopt it. And then that sort of concentric circle will expand one after the other after the other.
Right.
And I see that in our business, and I'm sure others do that are doing experiential activations. The adoptions are for that cohort that have been targeted, the attendees within that experience is very, very high. You know what I mean? Like in some cases, we've got almost, 80% of, 12. I think we just did an event last week. There might have been 2,500 people in attendance, at least 2,000 downloaded app, played with the experience, beamed in holograms, spent a stupid amount of time, because we track and measure it all, right, in the experience, which was very high. We do have other events where we do it, and, there might only be 25%, and it tilts, obviously towards a younger cohort of people within the overall attendee base doing it because they're a little bit more savvy with their phones, right? But I do think you will see that adoption. And when the network effect hits, it's somewhat logarithmic. There'll be a tipping point, quote unquote, and we'll be on the upside of the elbow as it starts going high.
Yeah, I think I have two scenarios where I think it'll happen. One is memes. I think, as someone who's myself, I've been covering technology for a very long time now, and that seems to be where a lot of things kind of like reach their tipping point and kind of kick off and get like move, go toward the moon in terms of just popularity are memes.
Sure.
So I think when you see, TikTok right now, they're beginning to delve a little bit more into AR. So whether it's TikTok, whether it's Snapchat, whether it's something on Instagram or some other app, I think what'll happen is some popular meme, like in the same way, like, so we cover a lot of Snapchat filters, and like early on in Snapchat, you had things like the hot dog meme or the dog tongue meme, the rainbow meme. And it became so popular that like it quickly normalized like AR filters, like for the mobile space. And so I think that's probably, at least, just of the two, that's one of the main vectors. The other one is, I think, what you're seeing with Clubhouse, which is celebrity. So Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces. So on Clubhouse, what they do is, they'll have a chat, and then, if they want to talk behind the scenes, they'll use either Instagram direct message or Twitter direct message. And often you'll see people to promote their Clubhouse room on Twitter. But the rocket fuel really came to Clubhouse when you saw people like Elon Musk jump on, Mark Zuckerberg jump on. I'm trying to think the other one who just came in, but like celebrities, becoming involved, and not just, deceased celebrities like some, what we were talking about before with like the Notorious B.I.G. or Tupac as holograms, but like real people who are alive and have like active engagement with their fan base right now, truly adopting the platform. I think that's when you'll see like wide adoption. Are you familiar with the Japanese hologram character? Forgetting her.
Miku?
Yeah. Like if she were real, like if that was Taylor Swift, beaming concerts around the world with just her hologram, I think you would see a lot more musicians like adopting it. But because it's like this virtual character, it's kind of like speaking to like a different audience, and it's kind of like having like a little bit of, it's growing, but it's its own thing. But I think when you see, I think there was actually a Black Mirror episode which had Miley Cyrus. I'm forgetting the name of the actual episode, but it starred Miley Cyrus. And this is actually what happened to her character. She began to do these kind of like holographic performances that, where she could just like have like motion capture, and she could beam her performance all around the world. And in the spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen the episode, spoilers. In the episode, they actually, her manager, she had some falling out with her manager, so they whatever, hospitalized her, put her under, lock and key, and they got someone else to do the motion capture performances of her hologram. So she lost ownership of her own hologram, but the fan base had no idea. All they saw was the hologram. So I think this is definitely coming. It's just going to take, that's science fiction, but that, like, what we have right now is not far. I mean, by the way, have you guys done any kind of like live capture, like live performance? Like you were saying something about Tony Robbins. Was he like rigged up, like, or was that just like purely beaming kind of like a 2D image of him?
Yeah, we just beam a 2D image of him through the tech. And we do that today on Air Show as well. We did an event a couple weeks ago with Offset, one of the hip hop artists. And
wait, what'd you do with Offset?
And I know
that's interesting.
It was part of a live stream program that he was doing. And it was a meet and greet. You beam him in, he says, "Hey, how you doing?" It's pretty powerful, right?
With the other, just to kind of like begin to wrap up, I definitely wanted to touch on this idea of NFTs and non-fungible tokens with regard to AR. We recently, I think today, Beeple had his big sale of 69 million. You've got later today, or I can't remember the exact time, but today you have Reggie Watts, who we're actually going to speak to later, like via Twitter Spaces. Reggie Watts had his latest music track with music video released as an NFT, and it's going up for auction. But you're seeing like this kind of like new kind of, I guess, shift of, artists beginning to embrace not just blockchain technology, but augmented reality as a way, and holograms as a way to kind of display and distribute their work. And I'm just wondering, like, from your vantage point, are you guys experimenting with that, investigating that, like looking at ways to possibly kind of, I don't know, dovetail what your existing apps are doing into the blockchain world?
Yeah, so all of the above, right? And in the context of an artist, right? It's as much about the ability to ensure from a digital rights management, that they're able to have an authentic claim to that content. Because as we all know, infringement, et cetera, is abundant in that sector, certainly within music, right? Well, and also in video. So the idea here is that, what can we do from a, call it a contractual level to ensure authenticity? So that's where the NFTs themselves really start to play a strong role. At the same time, you're going to see the platforms that are delivering these, I'll call them assets, these bits of content evolve greatly as well. So websites, experiential platforms, ticketing components, merchandise, really, you're looking at really strong ways to get digital merchandise out there now. All of these areas we play in right now because we know based on our client set, that's what they're asking us for, right? And so, all our product roadmaps contain this. It's going to be an interesting time over the next 12 months, specifically around that area.
So now, wait,
I think you're going to see,
So you're saying you're playing in it. So does that mean you're investigating it, or you're developing your own token, or you're working with an existing platform, that's already engaged with the Ethereum network? Like, what do you specifically, like, what's going on?
Yeah. So all I can really divulge is that I'll call it, we're strongly investigating the best way to integrate into our product roadmaps currently, because there is without a doubt large demand in the industry for this.
Gotcha.
A lot of eyeballs on it. Yeah. And what's interesting about our technology, and I'll say this is probably, I imagine it's not just unique to NexTech. We just happen to be in a really good position because of our platforms. This will happen quickly. It's not something that is going to take, a year, 2 years, 3 years to engineer and uplift, right?
What is this specifically?
This whole ability to create your NFTs, to create authentic contracts with your content.
Oh yeah, it's happening now.
Together fairly quickly. That's what I mean.
No. It's the train has already left the station. Like I have people. I'm here in New York. I used to be in the music industry. I know a lot of traditional fine artists. I had a lot of people like, oh, what do you know about this? And I'm just like, dude, the train has left the station. Like,
I know.
Like, if you're trying
talking
to
about it 2 years ago.
Yeah, if you want to get in on this, this is old.
Right.
Like CryptoKitties was really kind of like the first thing I saw around this space like a few years ago. And now you have like Gemini, which is the crypto exchange based here in New York. They have a thing called Nifty Exchange, I think it's called. Nifty Exchange, I think it's called. And it's very easy to launch your NFT, product there. Yeah. And there are a bunch of other platforms, Super Rare and other places. So the train has already left the station. I think now it's just a matter of kind of wrapping our heads around the future of like how we commoditize and assign value to all these various, like you said, like everything from digital merch. Like, let's say Offset is like, doing this concert. Maybe we don't make the concert something you can purchase, but like if you attended that virtual concert, there are only 5 pieces of this virtual merch.
That's exactly it.
Assigned to that particular concert, and then you can have that. So like stuff like that is like really exciting, and I think like the one thing that is kind of a little bit worrying is just like you have a lot of people who are just, all they see are the dollar signs, which is great. America, capitalism, business. Yes. Money, all good. Not mad at that. But, there's another thing to think about just in terms of, like what we were talking about before with regard to like retaining, the rights to your identity, whether it's, something like we were talking about with the science fiction thing with Miley Cyrus, or something very real like the Notorious B.I.G. or Tupac, just where is this all going? Who really owns it? Like if it's on the blockchain, like, is that secure? Because they call it decentralized, but Ethereum, there are debates as to how decentralized Ethereum is. So you can get into this deep rabbit hole of like a discussion and philosophy around it. But it's exciting, and I'm excited that AR is at the center of it. Is there anything like we didn't? I'm basically going to wrap up now, but is there anything else you wanted to hit that I didn't really touch on?
No, I mean, I could chat all day with you. We use your website. I've been, watching it for ages now. Great platform, great content.
Thank you.
We could easily, I could spend hours talking with you. But I think, why don't we wrap on this? It was a great session. Congrats to the first use on Twitter. Feel free to give me a shout. I'm happy to talk with you at any time. We're constantly moving the needle on AR, and we just love to get the word out. I'm happy to share with others they're in the same place. Everybody benefits when AR gets into as many hands as possible.
Well, give me your preview. Is there anything coming from you guys, like a celebrity or some major partnership with a big company? Like what's coming next from NexTech?
Oh wow, well there's a lot. So a lot of big companies working with us right now on some fairly massive 5G stuff. We've got some pretty incredible mobile AR coming out with live streaming. I think is completely next level. The aforementioned mesh, or whatever we end up calling that, will begin to unveil towards the second half of the year as well. And, we're a small company, right? We're 250 people, 3 years old. But we've got over 1,200 clients and growing. So, as a, quote unquote startup, it's just, I think we've hit the kind of zeitgeist at the moment for AR, and we just want to see it continue to grow. So lots happening. Just I could touch base with you once a quarter if you want.
Absolutely.
Share the latest release.
And by the way, that's great that you have some involvement with Offset, but come on, man, Drake is not involved. That's your guy. That's the Toronto icon. I mean, he's at every Raptors game. He's like he's got the Toronto flag on his back.
Yeah, I was going to say, stay tuned.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Get on that guy, man. I mean, come on. Let's get him involved. Anyway, hey, Paul, I appreciate it. Absolutely.
All right, man.
Paul, I appreciate it. Thanks for talking to us. And, like I said, I guess prior to when we started, you'll be seeing this in a couple of other places. So thanks again for talking to us.
My pleasure. You have a great afternoon.
All right.
Take care.
Cheers.